So as I was preparing for this weekend, I know I've told you lots of times I spend a fair amount of time doing research, and I came across a story. It was the story of an old court jester who sometimes made some very, very wise sayings. One day, however, the jester said something that was so foolish that the king, handing him a staff, said to him, "Take this and keep it until you find a bigger fool than yourself." Some years later, the king was very ill and laid on his deathbed. His courtiers were called, his family, his servants, all stood around his bedside. The king, addressing them, said to them, "I am about to leave you. I am going on a very long journey, and I shall not return again to this place. So I have called you all to say goodbye." Then his jester stepped forward, addressing the king, said, "Your Majesty, may I ask you a question? When you journeyed abroad, visiting your people, staying with nobles, or paying diplomatic visits to other courts, your heralds and servants always went out before you, making preparations for you. May I ask what preparations your Majesty has made for this long journey that he is about to take?" "Alas," replied the king, "I have made no preparations." Then the jester said, "Take this staff with you, for now I have found a bigger fool than myself." When I read that, after having been through the readings in the gospel for this week, I thought to myself, preparation, it's kind of an important thing. And then I went back and reflected a little longer on the readings in the gospel for today. And once again, we have Jesus giving us a very simple instruction to follow, a very simple guide to how we should be living our lives. And then I had to ask myself, okay, so once again, we've got these rules, we've got this guide. I can only ask for myself, but do I follow them? Do I live the way Jesus showed me to live? Do I live a life like the 5 wise virgins or the 5 foolish ones? Remember, the wise ones were prepared. And that's really the question for me, is how prepared am I? The next few weeks, as the liturgical year comes to an end, we will be focusing on end of time, when Jesus comes in the second coming. Today, the parable of the 10 virgins. Next week, another parable, this time of the 3 servants entrusted with their master's possessions. And then 2 weeks from now, Christ the King. This last Sunday of the liturgical year, when we see Jesus sitting on his throne, separating the sheep from the goats, the good from the bad, those who followed and those who did not follow the model that he gave us to live by. And it will be that simple a decision for him. Did you follow or didn't you? Are you prepared or not? And as I reflected a little further on this in the coming weeks, I realized we should probably be asking ourselves those questions, not just at the end of the liturgical year, but every day. We should be asking ourselves, am I ready? And when we ask ourselves if we're ready, I think we also need to remember that although it's a simple question, it really has many parts and many different ways to look at it. At least for me, there's never one simple answer to the different ways I can ask myself if I'm ready. The question can be broken down into many, many parts. Have I lived my life following the model that Jesus gave me to live by? If someone looked at me and saw how I live, would they know that I'm Christian? Does my life show that? Do I treat other people, those who I know and those who I don't know, with love and respect? Do I point out the splinter in my brother's eye while ignoring the log in my own? And am I ready to meet God right now? I think if we're totally honest with ourselves, and again, I can only speak for myself, but if I'm totally honest with myself, the answer to those questions is sometimes yes, but sometimes no. And so I now need to look and say, what changes do I need to make in my life so that I am ready to meet God when He decides the time is right? Remember, the people that lived with Jesus lived in that time, but He would be returning, the second coming would happen during their lifetime. For those who lived at the time of Jesus, and even for us today, we need to remember to stay awake, to be ready, for we know neither the day nor the hour. So over the course of the last few weeks of this liturgical year, God is once again giving us an opportunity to reflect on how we live our lives each and every day. And once again, we have Jesus telling us in simple, easy to understand terms what we need to do. We need to bring the extra oil for the lamps. We need to be the best stewards we can be with the blessings that God has given to each of us. We need to live our lives in a constant state of readiness. In the end, we need to stay awake, to be ready, for we know neither the day nor the hour.